What's going on, guys? This is Damien from The Lookout, and I'm here with new sensation BigONotation, the second place at the World Championship. You represent, yes! So, congrats, man. Welcome back to the channel.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I'm always happy to be here.
Oh, man. So, today we're gonna go over your Gamma deck. We're gonna talk about some questions, some choices. But before we dive into this video, let me know, like, why Gamma? I know that, like, Crimson and Beerus were both, like, high competitors for this tournament, so why Gamma?
So I was really testing Bojack for the World Championships. Like I was grinding the deck for like 2 or 3 months, I'd say, beforehand. And I had one weekend where it was the weekend before the actual World Championships. Peter Dance, shout out to Peter. He came over to me. He's my teammate now. He's recently joined our team. And he came over to stay with me for a weekend, and we just grinded out a load of games. We tested a load of stuff against Crimson. And we ended up finding out that like Gamma has a really strong matchup into Crimson. You just don't attack into them. You don't let them awaken. You negate every swing. And then you Turning the Tide them, or you burn them with like Beast Gohan and Bad Omen. And so it has a really strong matchup into that. And then it also is just like generally good into a lot of other decks. And I was finding Bojack was struggling quite a lot into Crimson. So I ended up just making a very, very last minute switch onto Gamma. And it ended up working out really well.
Nice, awesome. Because I know you're probably, I mean, you're definitely the best Gamma pilot in Europe. You won the European Championship with Gamma, so yeah. So okay, we're gonna go through the deck, through creator view and stuff. So for those of our viewers who don't know, can you please just briefly, very basically explain what the leader does?
So the leader is pretty busted, honestly. When it attacks, it's very simple on the front side. Is when it attacks, you draw a card. It also has a permanent on both sides. You can't use non-Red Ribbon Army cards to place cards in your energy, so you can't just abuse some broken ramp interactions to gain a bunch of energy there. And then you can awaken when your life is 4 or less, or you have a specified 2-cost blue unison in play, and you draw one, untap one, go down to 6. And then on the backside is where it gets really stupid. So anytime you play a blue card from your energy, you replace it from the top of your deck in rest mode. And then at the end of your turn, you add 3 Android cards from your energy to your hand, and then draw a card, and then put 3 blue Android cards from your hand into your energy, which go in active mode. And then until the end of your opponent's next turn, you can't use non-Android battle card skills that cost 7 or less. So effectively like SS3 reboot in the sense that it untaps 3 every turn.
Yeah.
But you don't have to like start the game with a really small hand size and ramp your life into your energy. So it's just pretty stupid, honestly. You just get free energy every turn.
Yeah, and you can just like safely like put down your floodgate and just get it back, like for next turn. That's super insane. Okay, let's go through the deck, man. So first card is what? Android 17, the multicolored one, Limitless Energy.
Yeah, so this is a pretty standard for any Gamma list. I feel like you just have to run 4 of this. It's a check land, so it enables your Cell, which is coming up, and then because you need the green energy for that. And then it's also just some really efficient removal for 2 energy, and it's a 20k dual attack.
Yeah, and then we have the Cell, the
big boss.
The big boss. Oof, this one is terrifying.
Yeah, he's crazy. 4 energy for a 30k double strike dual attack, removes your opponent's entire board, and then if they want to negate the attack, they start losing their own hand for the auto.
Yeah, this guy is nuts, man. When I saw this guy spoiled, I was, what the hell? Yeah. Following that, we have the 4 copies of the Unison here.
Yeah, so obviously the Unison is a massive enabler in the deck. You need it to get your Awaken so that you can start just having 3 open energy for each of your opponent's turns. But it also has the added benefit of generating you Z energy every time a player swings, or the first time a player swings each turn. You get to combo a 5k from your drop. And then occasionally you get the -4 off, although not very often nowadays with Black Smoke in the format. But sometimes you get the -4 off, so it becomes a 25k dual attack, which is really good, especially into yellow, because it's 2 big unison swings that will get under a riposte.
Yeah, this unison is... yeah, like you said, 20k, because he combos once, he charges the energy for free, he's super strong. Yeah. Then we have the Floodgate guy, the Topo android.
Yeah, first of the many floodgates. Just a very, very strong card. I feel like blue should have never got these kind of floodgates, like a Topo style of floodgate. I feel like the kind of watered down versions of this, like the Gohan floodgate that blue used to get, were much more fair. But the fact that an archetype like this has got this kind of floodgate is just crazy.
Yeah, it's a nightmare to deal with, and like you said, this is first out of many. So like this is, you're not touching me deck, like that's it. So next on our list we have the super combo.
Yeah, I really wanted to go with the Android 18 super combo that makes your opponent bottom deck a card, because I found a lot of the time, like against Crimson, I'm negating a lot of their early swings, so I'm not going down to 4 life a lot, and I was expecting to play a lot of Crimson. So the Android 18 is obviously live earlier against Crimson rather than the Android 8. And also against Crimson, you're stifling their hand size quite a lot because they're not able to awaken and get that like draw 3, and then they're not even plussing off their leader at that point as well. So unless they're running Apes or Black Smokes in the main, their hand size is going to dwindle quite a lot, so the Android 18 is often a lot better against them. But the main reason I chose to run the Android 8, well, there's 2 big reasons. The first one being that I can charge it, and it's not got energy exhaust, which I found was very relevant after a lot of testing, because first of all, against Crimson, you want to Turning the Tide them, especially game 1 if you know that they're not running Jiren. You wanted to Turning the Tide them, and then if you don't kill them, you can just pick up the 3 super combos from your energy and draw a card, and then you have you don't have to put down 3 androids, so you can just keep them in your hand for defense on the next turn. So I found that was really relevant. But also the fact that they're searchable as well means that, well, the Android 18 isn't a red ribbon army, which it means that it's not searchable off of the searcher that grabs your red ribbon armies, it's just great to have searchable super combos. But yeah, the main reason being the fact that you can charge them is great, because I also found that a lot of the time I'd want to be keeping like the floodgates in my hand for my opponent's aggressive pushes, and I'd much rather just charge down super combos until I needed them.
Yeah, that's just showing another amazing upside of his absolutely broken ability to charge things and then get it back into hand. Like it's there's absolutely. Like 0 consequences basically for what you're charging, because he's avoiding that issues. Yeah. Then we have a mistake. Android 17 defending friends.
Yeah, this guy is nuts.
Mistake. Yeah.
It's just a mini Topo, but for 1 energy, and you don't have to discard. So if the card ever gets counterplayed, you're just laughing because you didn't really lose anything for it, and you just play another one because it's 1 energy.
Yeah, that one is... I wouldn't be surprised to see that one go at some point. That one is just... Come on, man. Like, the deck plays 8 Topos.
Yeah, and the 3 Z energy requirement is like really easy to get to if your opponent doesn't Black Smoke your early Unison. But even if they do, you get like 1 or 2 Z energy on the turn you drop the Unison anyways, so it's kind of fine anyways. You just combo 1 more card and it's live.
Then we have Android 14 and 15, the Ravagers.
Yeah, this card just has to be a 4 of in every Gamma list. It just searches you your Unison, which you need to see early to awaken, and then it also sets up the 5k in your drop for your Unison to combo with and get you a free Z energy. And then it's just also generally good in the later stages of the game to search you for whatever you need. I think the only red ribbon army that it can't grab in the deck is the Cell, because it's higher than a 5 cost. But yeah, it just searches like almost the entire deck.
Nice. Following that up with another counter, Android 18, let the battle begin, 4 copies.
Yeah, this card is again insane. Just I mean, especially with God Sealing gone, this is like one of the few counterplays that blue really has that is very efficient for what it is. I was trying to run this at 3 initially because I found with red being taking a bit more of a backseat in the last format with because Crimson is like countering all of the SS4 and Red Sin players that there are around. I felt like Android 18 was just a little bit weaker than it used to be because I used to mainly use it for counterplaying the 4-drop Sin and the Broly Crowns. But with red out of the format, it doesn't do so much. But then I figured that if I run into any sort of Crimson lists that run like 1-drop Self Awakeners, which I was expecting like a lot of Awakening Talent pans going into the tournament, then this card is going to be huge into that just to, again, further stall their Awaken. So I ended up just upping it to 4. And again, it just has like generally good utility because against like any blue deck, it can counterplay the Beerus Z battle card. It just is really, really strong against Z battle cards in general, but also just in general, it's really strong. For one energy counterplaying a 4-drop or less is crazy.
Yeah, that's card is insane. Card is insane. It's gonna get even crazier, man. Like it's
Yeah, with Android 21 and stuff, it's just dumb.
yeah. Then we have 4 copies of Android 17 Rebellious Will.
Yeah, this is again fairly standard for Gamma lists. I feel like this is just a 4 of. People have said to me before that the Android 18 is like better against blue, which you can argue because it has crit and blue is like very much a resource-based color. They have an excess of energy which they need to turn into resources by playing like cantrips or apes or stuff like that. And so the crit can do a lot against blue. But I feel like the Android 17, even in a blue meta, is better. And especially in the Crimson meta that we were in, because again, I'm not attacking them. So I just need cards that I can like guaranteed have stick around for when I actually need to kill them. And so the barrier on the Android 17 is so valuable against Crimson.
Nice. And then we have the 18, 2 copies of
the
other part.
Just another 2 copies just to help fix the energy when I need to. And it means if I can see copies of it early on, it can nicely fill out the curve, especially on turn 3.
Nice. So we have these 2, then we're following it up with another Floodgate.
And another mistake, to be honest.
Yeah. More mistakes. Bandai, come on, man.
Yeah, this card should have never been allowed to be used with this leader, I don't think. The fact that it just shuts down so many decks. Like, against Crimson, their only real targets for this are the Videl Negate and the Black Smokes. Against SS4, the only target for it I can think of is the 1-drop Goku that searches top 5. It just shuts down entire turns, this card. It's really crazy.
Just insane blue cards. Then we have like the staple, you can also say mistake, but yeah, there is the staple, 2 copies of Dimension Magic.
Yeah, I did want to run this at higher ratios, like 3, but when I found out it was open deck list, I needed to find space for a Dirty Burst in the main just to have that fear factor. And I figured people are going to be running like Borgoses if they're playing Crimson or any sort of D-Magic hate anyway, so it's less valuable.
2 copies of the other Checkland Android 18.
Yeah, this card is just crazy again. Like, in Gamma, you really need that consistency, so I felt like keeping the list at 50 cards and having 6 searches in total was really important. But then also the fact that this is a Checkland where sometimes you might be missing the other Checkland to play your cell, it definitely comes up a lot more than you might expect. And it does also have that factor of like, I don't need to run the Gohan rare in the list because I can, in theory, just arrival this in as a replacement. So it kind of frees up space in that sense as well.
Following it up with the secret rare, of course, Beast Gohan. What else could it be? Like,
yeah, Gamma just needs a finisher, especially in the massive blue meta that we were in. So Beast Gohan just fills that hole that there was in the deck.
Yeah, for a very long time I was thinking that like nothing is gonna, card that replaces Baby Hatch, as like the big blue one needs to say like win the game on it. And Gohan is pretty close to just saying win the game on it, so
Yeah.
Insane card. Then limited to 1. Oh yes, of course. But okay, this was before it was limited, guys. Of course, like so.
Yeah, I wasn't cheating at Worlds.
Yeah. 3 copies of. No, basically Dead Boo, but back then this was, oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really sad to see this card go. I never thought that this would be a card that they'd hit, and I do hope that they'll bring it back eventually. Just for Bojack, to be honest. But the main reason I would run this in Gamma is because there's a couple reasons. The main one being that Black Smoke is again a thing, so you kind of need a way to stabilize after they Black Smoke your 2-cost Unison, and like you want to keep your Android 18 counterplays alive. So this is a perfect way to do that, and the deck has so much natural defense that it's really easy to just defend this Unison. And then past that as well, going into specifically against the Crimson matchup, the main advantage of this deck is once you're awakened, you don't have to swing to draw cards. And so this is another card where you don't have to swing to draw a card, so you can just keep gaining advantage with your leader and your Unison, and just build up a massive hand size while they're drawing 1 card per turn.
Insane. Definitely one of the strongest Unisons in the game. Like this was.
Yeah, for sure.
Terrible to run into. If you're not playing green, this is terrifying to run into. And if you're playing green, well, you basically lost against anything else. So, next is Turning the Tide. This is like an alternative finisher.
Yeah, this is just the win condition against Crimson game 1 at least. And then if they're not siding Jirins, or if you're in a position where you just have to hope they don't have Jirin, it's maybe a win condition games 2 and 3. But it's just a bit of a dumb card. It got sided out against most things that weren't Crimson, I think. But against Crimson, it just wins games. It's really dumb.
It is, I think a lot of people would agree with you. Like this card is, this effect is just stupid. This effect is just stupid.
It should probably be banned at least at some point. If not, the SS4 Vegeta ramp card should probably go, because that creates a toxic relationship with this card.
Yeah, having those two together is a... We'll see soon. But we've seen so far that it's an awful mistake having those two together. So we have the last 2 cards, not even a scratch. Okay, so this one is spicy. So
yeah, this is... I feel like about the most interesting a Gamma list could get with that, just the 1 card. Other than that, this list is like pretty standard stuff. But I have to give a massive shout out to Philip, obviously the current world champion now. But he put me onto this tech like in the couple of days beforehand. Me and him and Poe were all testing together, and him and Poe recommended this card, and yeah, it's just crazy because against Crimson specifically, you need a lot of 1-drop negates because you want to be negating their leader swing every turn. And then this is just a 1-drop negate that then lets you draw a card later on, which is crazy because against Crimson, again, you have a massive excess of energy because you're not attacking them, so you don't really need to put that much pressure on. As long as you're developing a board, you can just pay 1 to draw a card, and then you have like more ways to find more 1-drop negates to defend with. And then just generally in like slower control matchups, this card is pretty decent as well, for the same reason, and it kind of means that you don't have to run draw rapes in the list because this kind of fills both the hole of needing more 1-drop negates, but also needing draw rapes.
Yeah, this is really a spicy tech. Like this is really spicy, man. And finally, 1 copy of Dirty Burst.
Yeah, like I said before, this was going to be in the side deck, but I found out it was open deck list like a day or 2 before the event, and decided to move 1 over into the main deck and replace a D-Magic with it. And it was mainly just for that fear factor of like, you can't drop Beast Gohan SCR on me because I might have the Dirty Burst that you saw in my list. And also, if there were any red SS4 Gogetas that got through from the LCQ, then I could have the fear factor for them as well.
Yeah, this card has went from like irrelevant like obscurity until into like this is the blue card that you're running. Like ever since Zenkai set 1, like this is the card that you're running. It's more of a red problem than like blue problem, but yeah, it's insane. So we're gonna jump into the Z deck now. So the Z deck is, well, it's interesting. You know, we have the standard one of 2 beers, Area Annihilators. This card is so good. Like, this is really good.
Yeah, it's an insane card. I didn't. The thing is, in that last format, I couldn't drop it as much as I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like people should be, or well, I saw people were maining or siding desperate measures because it was open deck list, but I was also expecting them to kind of take that approach. And this card gets super punished by any sort of counterplays like desperate measures. So you do have to be really careful dropping this card, but it's still just a really insane card. I feel like you still have to run 2 copies of it.
Mm-hmm. And then because you're charging some green energy during the immovable.
Yeah, this card was an absolute MVP for me. Like, it made me consider going to 2 copies of this for the future, but I don't think that's really like it's not a really reliable just because of the
Mm-hmm.
2 green. But yeah, especially in a blue meta, like just being able to drop this after they establish a Boo Unison and then wipe the Boo Unison in the same turn, it's really crazy. And there were times where I would save my Awake until turn 3 and drop my Unison turn 3 if I was going second, so that going into a Crimson player's turn 4, they'd have to decide whether they wanted to black smoke my 2-drop Unison or drop their own Boo Unison.
Mm-hmm.
And then either way, it's good for me because if they black smoke my Unison, I can just drop my own Boo Unison and re-establish a Unison. And if they go for their Boo Unison, then I have generated enough Z energy off of the 2-drop Unison to drop a Jiren and just kill it next turn. And then they're back to square one again.
Yeah, this card is phenomenal. Like when it comes to green Z battle cards, this one is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Speaking of phenomenal Z battle cards, Cell at 2 copies of Cell. This one is scary. Yeah.
I mean, it's free in this deck because you untap 3 at the end of the turn. So there are times where you might not need to drop a big cell and you can just drop this guy and it's better because you want the crit swings to go through instead of the double strikes. So yeah, this card is just like your replacement for the fact that you don't need to run 4 of the big cell anymore.
Yeah, you need to be... Now, if you're playing against blue, you need to respect the fact that this thing is in the Z deck and it can punish you horribly. So,
Yeah.
Did this next one see play? SSB Vegito Godly Spirit.
Yeah, I don't think I did end up dropping this at all. In testing, it came up a fair bit against Crimson because there were times where I just want to drop it and then I back it up with the counterplay Android 18, and then they can't Beerus it. So unless they draw Black Smoke, then they can't really remove it. And in theory, it's really good against Crimson, but I just ended up... There was never really a point where I needed to drop it in the one Crimson match I played.
Yeah, this one is... It's super expensive. Like, it's super expensive.
It's a big investment, and people will side Black Smokes against you anyways for your Unison. So it can be really risky if you drop it at the wrong time, I think.
And the last one for a bit of hand control, right?
Yeah, pretty much. In case any SS4 or Trunks cheaters got 2 away from me, this was kind of a catch-up tool there.
Nice. And finally, let's just dive into the Z deck. 3 copies of Black Smoke. So
this was mainly for the mirror match. I was expecting to see like 1 or 2 more Gammas in the tournament, so I was kind of surprised that I was the only one there. But this was mainly for the mirror match, but it also just has application against a lot of decks. It's a really strong card. It can do work against Trunks Cheetah with the barrier removal. It can do work against kind of SS4 as well with the Unison removal. It's just a really, really good generic card.
Awesome. Then some more floodgates, cause like, fuck you people, you're not attacking me today.
Yeah, the Gohan, it does work against Crimson, like I said before. It does work against a lot of decks, really. Trunks Cheetah, SS4. So any deck where I felt like it had good application, where I just needed to stall those extra couple of turns, I would side the 3rd copy in.
So following that, 1 copy of Dirty Burst. This is in case, like you said, like in case something big and red shows up, just to scare them away.
Yeah,
exactly. Then we have like 2 copies of Cunning.
Yeah, so this was I had 1 in the sideboard initially, and then I found that I just had like an extra slot because I think I'd miscounted the number of cards in my sideboard, and I'd kind of brought a stack of cards that I might consider siding in and out anyways. And I found out Poe was on the Kaioken SCR, so I was like, well, I might as well just chuck a second one in because I don't know what else I'd put into the sideboard, to be honest. And it turned out that Duval was also on the Kaioken SCR, and they were both paired against each other in my bracket. So as long as I won that first game, I knew that I was against a Kaioken user. And so this ended up being a really, really clutch card to come in from the sideboard.
Nice, nice. And then we have Borgos, also for the blue matchup.
Yeah, again, we're just in a blue meta, so this card is going to do a lot of work against Reboot Beerus, against Crimson, if I ended up siding it in, which I don't think I did because I just didn't have the space. Against the mirror match, it just does a lot.
Then here's a scary one. Android 21 Bad Omen.
Yeah, so initially my plan with this card was game one going into Crimson matchup, I would just drop Turning the Tide and win from that, hopefully. And then games 2 and 3, the idea was that my opponents would then side in their Durance from the sideboard, and I would side out the Turning the Tide and side in the Bad Omen and go for more of a burn win condition and kind of play the game a bit more normally, like still negating a lot of their leader attacks to stall their Awaken, but then actually trying to kill them rather than just putting their hand and drop back and using Turning the Tide to win. So I'd try and pressure them down to 2 life and then use Android 21 and Beast Gohan to try and close out the game from there. But the fact that I then found out it was open deck list kind of stunted that idea a little bit because I felt like people would kind of expect it. It was still a strategy that I tried to use, but it just never really ended up coming up, to be honest. And in that last game against Philip, I was digging for this card really hard because I obviously put him down to 1 life, but it ended up being my next life, unfortunately. So can't really do much about that.
Oh, that stings, man. Oh. We have 2 copies of Mechikabura. This is an older card that still sees like applications here and there in the sideboard. Like if the meta becomes like very stale, like you know what to expect, this one can really carry some weight.
Yeah, 100%. This is card. I feel like with this card in the sideboard, I maybe could have gotten away without Dirty Burst at all in the deck. Because if I did come against any SS4 players, I can just use this to cool their 8-drop whenever I needed to. But it just has really good utility, like against Crimson or any blue decks that are trying to push onto me. I can just cool Gohan SH 8 cost, and they can't Secret Rare me for a turn, which alleviates a lot of pressure. And it also has the added benefit of hitting the Gohan rare as well. But also against Reboot Beerus, it will hit the 6-drop Vegeta. Like there's a lot of key cards in the decks of the last format that you just want to cool for a turn and give you that extra turn to kind of set up and chill for a bit.
Yeah. This is like I said, this is an older card that always like sees some application once the metagame becomes very predictable, let's say it like that, because you need to predict correctly with this one, otherwise you just wasted 2 energy. So
yeah, exactly.
Then 2 copies of Desperate Measure.
Yeah, so again, this one I have to give a shout out to Poe for, because Poe and Philip came in with the Desperate Measures and then not even a scratches. I was initially siding Absolute Release Ball because I just felt like it was better with the fact that I can charge a multicolor and that the 4 or less life stipulation on it wouldn't really affect me all that much. But I started to figure out, well, Poe mentioned to me that in the mirror match, because initially I was siding the Absolute Release Balls for the mirror match, if I Desperate Measures a Floodgate in the mirror match, then I can bounce my own Floodgates back to my hand to use them for later turns, which is huge. And then also it had the added benefit that Poe pointed out that against his Blue Beerus, if he tried to go for the We See battle card and I was going second, so I had 1 energy, I could just drop a Desperate Measures and kind of shut him out of the game from there. So he kind of gave me advice on how to counter his own deck, which was hilarious. But luckily it didn't end up coming up in the actual tournament. And yeah, it would have been great to play the mirror and have this card, but obviously there were no other Gammas in the tournament, so it didn't end up really coming up.
And finally, an additional copy of Not Even a Scratch.
Yeah, again, this is just for Crimson. You need those one-drop negates, and this card is the best one-drop negate against Crimson, in my opinion.
Nice. So, guys, that's the deck. Ollie, now let me ask you a question. So, seeing as you're one of undisputedly the best players in Europe, and seeing how we just got we got out of this period where everyone was okay, blue is super scary, and we were expecting, a ban list to happen, and, well, it was, yeah, it happened, essentially, let's just say it like that, it happened. Now with Crimson Gutted entering into the new format, how do you feel about Gamma's position, theoretically, in the upcoming format?
So I do think Gamma is just still going to be really, really strong. It's always been kind of a powerhouse because the tools it has in its own archetype they're just very strong standalone cards. And with Crimson gone, I feel like Crimson was like a very weird matchup. It forced you to build and play the deck very weirdly. So you can kind of cut out a lot of the anti-Crimson tech, which is good because it means it frees up slots for things like Dirty Burst in the main with the amount of red that I expect to see in the next couple of formats. The Dirty Bursts are going to be really helpful again. And you can probably do with just cutting down on the BigONotions. Like, obviously, it's limited to one, so you're going to have to cut down on them. But you might not even need BigONotion in the deck anymore just because, the Crimson matchup isn't there, so you don't need that extra passive draw. And it's still good as a replacement Unison for when they black smoke your 2-drop, so you could probably still get away with the 1 copy. But it's definitely nowhere near as necessary in the deck anymore, I think. So I do feel like it's a very strong deck. You're probably going to be a bit more reliant on the Gohan floodgates as well, but there'll be more space for those with you having the ability to cut cards like Turning the Tide and not even a scratch again. You're going to just be able to gear the deck again towards beating red. Like I did for EU Finals, it just slaughters red most of the time. And so I'd imagine it will still be in a very, very strong position. Maybe against Android 21, I can imagine it would struggle just because of the fact it gives both blue and green specified costs. But I think if you just never play the multicolors, you might be okay. I'm not entirely sure how that matchup will go, to be honest, but I guess we'll have to see. But I think Android 21 is probably the only real matchup that it might struggle with at the moment. And also you have the counterplay for the Bad Omens. No, the Bad Omen's a 5 cost, right?
Yeah,
so you can't counterplay the Bad Omen. Yeah, never mind. But I'd imagine you can include some tech to deal with the Bad Omen, with the Android 21 deck in general.
So the future is red, basically. Like, the future is red. Zenka said one all over.
Those new TPs, they're a bit stupid.
Insane. Well, before we go, do you have any shoutouts?
First of all, I got to give a shout out to my team, Team -2. We're on the come up. We're out here to take some names, and we're out here for blood. And second of all, I have to give a massive shout out to my mate Leon. He watched the World Championships. He knows very little about Dragon Ball, next to nothing. He watched the World Championships. He was there to support me throughout the whole way. And then when I came home, he gave me this incredible T-shirt, which I think makes up for the fact that I came second and missed the charge and everything.
Nice.
So I'll be wearing this to next year's Worlds and taking the win.
Nice, awesome. Well, guys, that was the deck profile and the brief interview. Thanks, Oli, for joining us. It's always a pleasure having you here on the channel. Go subscribe to BigO's channel, guys. Link is in the description below. And yeah, this has been Damien from The Lookout, and I'll see all of you in the next video.